YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, coming to you from the Tomb of the Shifting Sands, a lovely spot in the desert where the bomb is going to be leading Archon the Black and his Tomb Kings against the Hunts Marshal's expedition, which is going to be led by Hayden's phone. Now, have you ever needed to just slow life down a little? You know, things moving too quickly? Well, the Hunts Marshal has a new deal for you. In his all-new army here, you can get yourself a light wizard with a net, and then you can get Markus Wulfhart with his Hunters Snare, and you can have nets for days, slowing down your enemies right to the pace where you like them, which is clearly the idea behind this Empire army. It's an interesting one that is, I really like this build. It's very curious. It's got 4 huntsmen, 4 flagellants, 2 halberds, a hellblaster volley gun, and then a couple of Knights of the Blazing Sun. And as I mentioned, Markus Wulfhart with his Hunter Snare and his ranged abilities. And then we do have a light wizard. It's got the Power Stone, the Net of Amontok, and a Banishment. So a little bit of AoE control, and then obviously the ability to control movement of key units. And Tomb Kings rely a lot on monsters and range, and it's very interesting what the Empire's brought here. They're going to be very vulnerable to the Casket of Souls that the Tomb Kings have brought. This unit is going to be absolutely excellent at mopping up archers. Now, there is some benefit to having the Huntsmen. They are more loosely spaced. It's not to say the Casket of Souls won't rain a lot of death on them, because it can, given the right opportunity, especially if they get blobbed. But their loose spacing will help slightly against this Casket. We do have a Tomb Prince, and he is protecting Archon the Black, and Archon, in proper Tomb King form, has come to the battlefield on a very nice chariot, floating above the sands, looking lovely. He's got his Tomb Blade and some of the other things that make him Archon. He's got skeleton chariots, there are some spearmen, and the front line is a mix of skeleton warriors, Kepra Tomb Guard, and 1 spearman. Scorpion is meant to help the front line, and then we have some Ushabti with great bow, as well as some Nehekara horsemen that are currently sitting out on the Tomb King's right flank. The range advantage will be in favor of the Tomb Kings, and that Casket of Souls is going to pay off real fast if the Empire can't get into range. And if the Empire can't get into range, the Tomb Kings cannot see the Huntsmen, presumably, at this point. I believe they stay hidden, though I could be wrong. Yeah, some of them are hidden, some are not, so apparently they can see some of them. The initial target is chosen to be the Flagellants. Can't say that I totally disagree with that initially, because you can't see all the Huntsmen. The Kepra Tomb Guard is well equipped to defeat Flagellants, but the rest of the infantry there is not. But there are multiple really good targets for the Tomb Kings, one of which is not available. The Knights of the Blazing Sun would be an excellent target for the Ushabti with great bow, but they are hidden behind the hill. So, I mean, there's a lot of targets and a lot of opportunity for the Casket. It will definitely want to kill the Huntsmen if the Tomb Kings hope to win, and if the Empire hopes to win, they're going to have to use their Huntsmen and nets successfully to kill off the Scorpion and Archon, and they would need to control the damage done by the Casket. Right now, the Casket is spreading damage out over multiple units, and it's already picked up some decent damage. Right off the bat, Markus is going to put his ability here on the Tomb Scorpion, which hurts it really bad. And the Tomb King's player makes a big mistake here, which is getting too hasty to defeat the Flagellants. And then moving his Tomb Scorpion into range. Huntsmen will absolutely demolish large targets in numbers like these, especially with the support of the Hunts Marshal there. So this is really, really mistaken move here, as the Scorpion is going to get just utterly deleted. Now, that said, not all is lost for the Tomb Kings. Look at this. This blobbed up over here, all the Huntsmen, like I said. Their spacing no longer useful, and the Casket drops a nasty shot right in on them. Does some really good damage, and that Casket is going to start to pick up experience pretty quickly. So you can see that the Huntsmen are moving up, but they're going to start targeting the Kepra Tomb Guard because they know that that unit is a threat. But this leaves them very vulnerable to the Casket, and at the moment the Tomb King's players got a chevron real quick there. You're going to see Archon move up. He wants to support. He's been getting shot by the Hellblaster volley gun. And he's also now being shot by Markus Wulfhart. He's already taken tremendous damage. And this is really rough for the Tomb Kings because they need the support of their heroes. And look at this. He gets hit by the Hunter's Snare. And then here comes all the Huntsmen and Markus. And they are just firing away. And Archon is going to be near deleted. You can see that everybody is shooting at him. So a very nice focused fire by the Empire. Here comes a cavalry attack. This one's near spearmen. A nice banishment here on the flank kills off a bunch of skeleton warriors. So the Empire managed to turn around what was about to be a big infantry disadvantage for them by using spells and focused missile fire, and they did pretty well, and they've also done a lot of damage to Archon in the process. They have not dealt with the casket, and the casket is still dealing damage to the Empire. Their Nehekara horsemen stopped the Knights of the Blazing Sun, and then got some support from Archon and the Spearmen, and so this is actually not looking great for the Knights of the Blazing Sun. However, things are looking very not great for Archon, who is still being targeted by artillery at this long range, and now the Ushabti with Great Bow get hit with the net, and they're stuck. Archon got destroyed by artillery fire and the previous damage. The Ushabti are now being taken apart, and the Empire is really getting some important work done. However, their main infantry line is mostly crumbled, and they've had to move forward their halberdiers. This left them vulnerable to the summoning of an Ushabti. This is from the Realm of Souls mechanic that the Tomb Kings had built up. So they summoned the Ushabti, and they did it very nicely, right on top of the Huntsmen. And this will make it difficult for the Empire to counter because they're also charging through here skeleton chariots. I feel like these skeleton chariots should have been here a little earlier, but this is definitely a great target for them to try and get in here. But once again, they get their units too close together, and that net is able to get in here. It's for some reason didn't get the chariots, even though they were inside. The Ushabti get netted, and they're held in place. And the damage that the Tomb Kings are going to be able to do here is going to get very minimized. Very minimized. The casket started taking a lot of damage from the Hellblaster gun, and then look at this. A very gutsy play by the Light Wizard, who's going to get in here and start beating on the casket. He does not have magic attacks. The Tomb Prince is going to attempt to do something about this here momentarily. He's going to swing over, run that attack, and see the halberds. The halberds will be very good in melee against anything the Tomb Kings have left. Look at this, though. Tomb Kings player, nice job beating down both Knights of the Blazing Sun. I heard another net go off. See that? The Tomb Prince was coming in for the save, and the Light Wizard netted him and basically just said, nah, bro, you wait here. I ain't done yet. So it just leaves them there. You see Markus actually sniping off his Ushabti with Great Bow. And then now Markus is going to use his snipe ability as the Light Wizard makes his getaway, and he's going to target that Casket of Souls, and here it comes. Boom! Done. So, very well played by Hayden's Phone. He has now destroyed every basic major target except for the Tomb Prince, and at this point the Tomb Prince can probably be managed. The Hellblaster Polygun managed to still be alive, though there are some Nehekara horsemen marauding around back here. So not great for the Empire because of the way that their cavalry didn't live, but I think otherwise some pretty stellar work by the Empire. The Tomb Kings definitely had a few really good moments in this battle, I think, where they really stopped the Knights of the Blazing Sun very well, and got some nice support in a few spots, but I think their chariots were a bit late into the Huntsman line, and I think if the Scorpion would have been pulled back out of range and then wait and then push it forward with the chariots, that could have been more dangerous. But again, you've got to contend with the double net, and I have to admit, for the Empire, it's an interesting build in the sense that it really helps you to control the threats of the Tomb Kings. You still have to contend with their massive ranged advantage, but despite having that big ranged advantage, the Empire was able to close the distance and use Markus, who's also very nice at range, and he was able to help control and destroy key targets. Look at this, though. The Kepler Tomb Guard, mostly dead early, 187 kills, still fighting. It's a very tough unit, folks, and when you don't get it all the way killed, it keeps healing. So there was a reason why the Empire player did put some effort onto them early. You can now see that Tomb Prince is broken loose. He wants to kill Markus. Markus is now supported by multiple units, and he's going to go ahead and go into melee with the Light Wizard and himself. That'll be a little too much. Tomb Prince is a pretty tough character, but he's not going to be able to handle the missile fire support plus two heroes batting away at him, so it just won't work. He's an anti-large unit, so he's not going to do as well dueling against these this Lord on foot here. He'd probably be dishing more damage to the Light Wizard, but then if he ignores Markus, he's going to take some damage, you know, one way or the other, so he can't have his cake and eat it too here, unfortunately. Not that Tomb Kings eat a lot of cake, you know, it just goes right through them. No matter what they do, they just can't seem to put on any weight. I guess maybe getting stuck with arrows would help them put on a little bit of weight. Yeah, that's going to be the end of our Tomb Prince, and pretty cool matchup here. Really like this one. It was interesting seeing the two factions up against each other. I mean, The Tomb Kings definitely have some very nice ranged capabilities that they can use against the Empire, and if they're used right, they can be deadly, and that's true against most factions for the Tomb Kings, because the Tomb Kings do have excellent range. Excellent range. Where they suffer is infantry, but their infantry's cheap, and it's great chaff, and if you use it properly, they have fantastic monsters and ranged units, and again, that's typically how you make it up. But they also really rely on some single entity units, like scorpions, like you know, the Lord on a chariot, or let's say a Sphinx type unit, whether it's the Necrosphinx or the Kemrian Sphinx, the Casket. There's a lot of these single entities, and the Hellblaster gun was pretty decent at range against the Casket, as we saw. It didn't end up doing, I mean, like, look at it. The Hellblaster gun didn't even pick up a chevron. It got 1106 value, which isn't too bad, but it's not great. I mean, look at the Casket here, 1595. It did pretty great, but it just wasn't enough, right? You know, I think that where the Empire ended up, let's take a look at Markus. Yeah, Markus did fantastic. 3469 value on Markus Wulfhart. That is some really nice work. Obviously, the nets won't add into the value factor here for the Light Wizard, so I think he was far more valuable than it's estimating. The cavalry, though, was very well contained by the Tomb Kings. You can see the Huntsmen did some very nice damage, I think roughly equal to their cost across most of them, but Markus really being the key damage dealer here. Archon just got shut out in terms of value. He just was not able to support his army. The Kepler Tomb Guard did pretty decent work, and then we can see again the Casket did pretty good, but the rest of the Tomb King's army got mostly shut down. So great game between Hayden's Phone and the Bomb. Hope you all enjoyed this one. I think both players made some mistakes, as always, right? I make mistakes when I play this game, so nothing surprising there. But I also thought it was cool to see. I think both players had a decent mindset on, and the builds. I don't think either player just had like an awful build or something like that. I think the Tomb King's build was pretty good. I think the Empire build was pretty good. Both of them had some weaknesses to each other. Like I said, both players made some mistakes, but in the end, I think those nets and the ability to control the Tomb King's key units ended up playing out well for Hayden's Phone, and it just didn't quite work out for the Tomb Kings in this one. I don't know. What do you all think about the matchup between Tomb Kings and Empire? Who do you prefer? How do you like that one? I mean, they're both pretty well-rounded factions, except for infantry. Except I think the Tomb Kings obviously have much better monster support, and then they have a lot of range options. Of course, the Empire has a lot of range options too. Yeah, Empire's probably got more magic and a few things like that. But really curious what you all think between these two factions. Which ones do you like, and who do you prefer? How do you think this matchup goes most of the time? Anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. Hope you all enjoyed this one. I will see you soon with some more action in Total War Warhammer 2 and other Total War games.